Welcome, my political friends of the interwebs. Let's talk Tea Party movement. I'm going to give you a real quick, just factoid rundown. Bear with me for a second, and then we'll get into the meat and potatoes. The Tea Party movement is an American political movement that advocates strict adherence to the United States Constitution, reducing U.S. government spending and taxes, and reduction of the U.S. national debt and federal budget deficit. The movement is generally considered to be conservative/libertarian/populist. The movement has sponsored protests and supported political candidates since 2009. Okay, I just want to throw that out there. I want to talk about what I observed as far as the Tea Party. You can chime in the comment section if you want, but the things that I observed, because I'm a political guy. I love politics. I pay attention to this stuff. So back when the Tea Party first started, which by the way, a lot of people don't realize this, but the name Tea Party actually started as taxed enough already. And a lot of people seem to forget that, but taxed enough already. And it comes from a very fiscal conservative stance. Now, here's the thing. I can still remember when the Tea Party first started. And remember the way the media first poo-pooed it. And they're like, oh, this is a AstroTurf organization funded by the Koch brothers, and it's not real, it's all smoke and mirrors, without the Koch brothers, they're nothing, and blah, 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 and they just completely dismissed the Tea Party. Well, then as the movement grew and the gatherings, the Tea Party gatherings became bigger and bigger and bigger, and they started to inject themselves into politics in a big way, that kind of scared the left. And, of course, the propaganda wing of the DNC, which is MSNBC, NBC News in general, they really started going on the attack. They attacked the Tea Party, relentlessly attacked the Tea Party. And then all of a sudden, they declared that it was dead. The Tea Party was dead. It was something that the Koch brothers created, funded, and now it's just petered out. It's nothing now. All the way up until the last elections 2 years ago. Oh man, it was like an atomic bomb went off. I remember I used to follow this lefty nutjob chick. She was not real big on YouTube, but she was. But I remember I used to watch her read her Twitter. She was a hardcore left-wing nut, but she was kind of cute, so I followed her. Anyway, I can remember the night that the results started coming back from the midterm elections, and I'll never forget her tweet, OMG, these tea people are winning everywhere. I mean, she was one of those people, along with a lot of the lefties, who were taking were absorbing their news from MSNBC. And they were just shocked, because the MSNBC had told them that the Tea Party was just a facade. It was just an AstroTurf movement. It wasn't real. Well, the election results were real. A lot of Tea Party people kicked some ass. Well, and then in the next thing you know, they swept that under the rug, and I say they, I'm talking about the mainstream media. And then it was like, well, they're really no longer a force, and now that they're in Congress, they really realize how complicated this stuff is, and blah, 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 blah. Nobody really, it's over for them. Once again, they wrote the obituary for the Tea Party. It's over for them. But the Tea Party's never been dead, and it's never been stronger. It really hasn't. They feel like, when mainstream media thinks of Tea Party now, they think back to the way they handled the Tea Party previous to the midterm elections, and they were like, well, we gave them way too much attention, and it just really helped them in the end, so now we're just going to call them dead and ignore them. So they don't exist anymore, because they're dead. They're no longer around. Well, then Chick-fil-A happened. Yeah, that's right. Chick-fil-A happened. And people came out of the woodwork. It was, I know, a shock to the left-wing media. A shock to see that. And of course, then they tried to counter that with some kind of a anti-protest. They had some kind of lesbian kissing, which as a guy, I support 1,000%. But it didn't really work. I think 3 lesbians turned out. They had like a little 3-way tongue action, something like that. But it really did pale in comparison to the unbelievable turnout well, one would say, and I would venture to guess, the Tea Party types, the people that are pro-God, pro-Constitution. They cling to their Bibles, their flag, and their Constitution, and their guns. That's what they cling to, the Bible, the Constitution, the flag, and guns. That's it. It's Tea Partiers in a nutshell, really. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to generalize the Tea Party, because the Tea Party is a very complex movement. There's a lot of libertarians in there, and there's a lot of conservatives in there, and there are a lot of people who just feel left out from the process, and they look at the Tea Party as somebody, as a movement that they can get behind. Because, look, if you're a rational human being and you have run a household, you realize the fiscal situation, the fiscal mess that we're in this country. You realize that we're borrowing money from China hand over fist to pay for programs that we really can't afford. And in return, all that's doing is making us into China's lapdog. Because, and you know what? And this is, truer words were never spoken. The borrower is slave to the lender. That's right. So we are quickly becoming China's slaves. So where our manufacturing jobs are going to, and what are we going to say to China? We're going to get tough with them? And then they dump all of our bonds, and then our whole world collapses. And for those people who say, well, China would never do that because it would ruin their economy. Look, their economy has become detached from our economy in a lot of ways. So don't fool yourself. And our government knows that. That's why we don't get tough with China. That's why we allow China to dump. I mean, think about this for a second. Do you think for a second that if if China wasn't our masters, that the Democrats, with all their green stimulus nonsense, do you think for a second that they would have allowed China to dump shit tons of solar panels onto the market? No. No. If they would have had the ability to really get tough. Now, some people say, well, Obama did get tough with that bullshit. Too little, too late. Too little, too late. And China laughs all the way to the bank. Because you know what? In the end, they will own that market. In fact, as it is right now, over 50% of the solar panels that are installed in the United States are manufactured in, wait for it, China. So anyway, the Tea Party, I'm getting way off the beaten path. Well, China and tea, I guess it's really not that far off the beaten path. So anyway, so the Tea Party, so what they decided to do, the mainstream media, what they decided to do was just this time around, they were going to ignore the Tea Party. Well, then the Chick-fil-A thing happened, and then that was a real eye-opener for them. But if you notice, you didn't see those massive lines. You didn't see the left-wing media really discussing that. In fact, if you didn't have the ability to watch Fox News, or if you didn't have the wherewithal to look it up on the internet, you would have never seen that. You would have never seen the magnitude of that, of the Chick-fil-A protests, or anti-protests, or whatever you want to, the support Chick-fil-A movement. Because Americans they're fed up. They're sick of it. They're absolutely sick of this left-wing nonsense. And the Tea Party really is representative of that. So, representative of us being sick, because there really is. So now here's the thing. They were trying to keep quiet about the Tea Party, then all of a sudden, boom, Paul Ryan is going to be the vice presidential nominee. And you know what, I got to be honest with you, and I'm going to do more stuff about this, because Paul Ryan's a sharp guy. He's a smart guy. He may be one of the smartest people on the Hill, truthfully. He understands finance. His wife's a tax attorney. Maybe she schools him, I don't know. But he has a real understanding about finance. He understands what's going. Listen, when it came to that Obamacare thing, there's a video. I'll share it with you in another video. But there's a video that shows Ryan literally explaining the bullshit in the both financial bullshit, the financial smoke and mirrors and trickery that the Democrats were trying to pull with this Obamacare. He was explaining it to Obama, and you should have seen the look on Obama. You will see the look on Obama's face, because in a video coming up, I will do something about that. But Obama, was just like everything Paul Ryan was saying with the numbers was just going right over Obama's head. You could see it in his face, like he had no clue what the hell Paul Ryan was talking about. Yeah, let's be honest. Obama's not that bright. He really isn't. Obama may be the dumbest president that's ever held office. Which is why, by the way, he won't release his college records. Because the facts are the facts. Now, I remember when people were trying to say that Bush was dumb and blah 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 blah, and then they compared Bush's college transcripts to Al Gore's. Bush may have had a hard time speaking, but when it came down to doing the work, he knew what the hell he was doing. His grades crushed Al Gore's. It was kind of freaking hilarious. Of course, you didn't hear a lot about that from the mainstream media. No, they rather the narrative be on every gaffe that Bush made. Which is really sad. And what's even sadder is I see conservatives who bought into all that nonsense. It's like the Sarah Palin thing. I hear and I see conservatives call her a dingbat and a dumbass, and I think to myself, seriously? Seriously? She's a dingbat and a dumbass with all that she's accomplished in her life. Seriously. And the only reason they say this is because they've been brainwashed by the left-wing media. They hear this stuff over and over and over and over, and they start to believe it. The fact of the matter is, and I will tell you, and I've said this before, I have actually negotiated contracts with oil and gas companies. And I'm here to tell you they are some of the biggest snakes on the planet. And the fact that Sarah Palin, as governor of Alaska, sat across the table with some of the biggest oil and gas interests on the planet, and not only negotiated with them toe-to-toe, but actually got a better deal than any of her predecessors had ever gotten, told me this woman's no dummy. So the fact that I hear conservatives regurgitating the nonsense that comes from the left regarding Sarah Palin, it makes me sick. Or, and there is the possibility, and I hate to do this because this is kind of a lefty tactic, but it's possible that they're just sexist. That's a sad reality. And you know what? the Liberal Party does not have a monopoly on bigotry, sexism, racism. They just don't. And it's a sad thing. Although I will tell you that the liberals, the left, are some of they are the biggest racist, sexist, bigot party on the planet. And I can prove that over and over and over and over. You talk about Tea Party darlings, look at Lieutenant Colonel West down in Florida. The absolute horrible attacks that he's enduring right now, it's sickening. And I can only hope, I tell you what, honestly, I don't know that he's going to be able to survive because, George Soros has dedicated an enormous amount of money to defeating Lieutenant Colonel West, an American hero. And the heinous, racist things that are being said about him and being done about him, portrayed about, it's sickening. It really is. But I don't know, money talks and bullshit walks, and I don't know that he can actually withstand the George Soros-backed attacks against him. I just don't. The only thing I'm hoping for is that hopefully Romney, when he becomes president, finds a place for Lieutenant Colonel West. Or actually, the proper term would be colonel, because when somebody's a lieutenant colonel, you don't emphasize the lieutenant part. You don't emphasize the fact that they're a junior. So, Colonel West, hopefully they find a position for Colonel West. I think he's a capable, outstanding, tea partying kind of guy. Tea partying kind of guy. Just a real great American. Let me know in the comment section, what do you think the position should be for Colonel West? I know some people have mentioned Secretary of Defense, which, hey. It's interesting because most of those top slots go to prior generals, and maybe when Romney becomes president, he can do the right thing and up Colonel West's rank to general. How do you think the liberals would handle that, considering why he lost his job? If you don't know, you should look into it. So it's an unbelievable story. So anyway. The Tea Party. Listen, the Tea Party is here. It's real. It's going to show itself in November, and it's going to take the White House. It's going to take, and any influence that the Tea Party can have on Mitt Romney is a good thing. I will tell you right now that this is a good thing. I think Paul Ryan brings a lot to the table. I think he's exactly what Mitt Romney needed. Anybody that tries to second guess Paul Ryan on any financial matters needs their head examined. And I'll tell you what, I personally cannot wait to see him tear the bejeebus out of that buffoon from Pennsylvania, Joe Biden. I can't wait to see it. It's going to be epic. Anyway, I'm running out of time. I got to go. Everybody take care. See ya!